In this video we are going to talk about Drew Barrymore's horror appearances. So before starting this video, like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. Drew Barrymore is the sweetheart of America. She's been a part of our lives for so long and from such a young age, that it's difficult to believe she's only 44. Her roles in the 21st century include Charlie's Angels, Riding in Cars with Boys and 51st Dates, all of which are great and endlessly quotable. Barrymore has usually played appealing wholesome parts in romantic comedies, and he does so with an almost easy elegance. She had a terrible life like many other child actresses before and after her, filled with drugs, alcohol and bad behavior, all before the age of 13. David Crosby, who knows a thing or two about overcoming addictions, intervened and saved her from a downward spiral into addiction and craziness. It could have been a lot different if she hadn't kept her edge throughout the rest of the 1990s. Corey Feldman and Macaulay Culkin are living instances of how her life may have turned out. That rebirth, going to treatment, meeting sober lovers, and emancipating herself from her parents set her on a new road, one that led her to become an American icon and a notable actress. It did, however, leave her with a dark streak, which she has lately shown in her work on Netflix's blockbuster horror comedy The Santa Clarita Diet. Barrymore's cherubic blonde demeanor fits nicely into horror fare, as she plays a California real estate agent having to come to terms with living her life as a zombie in that episode. Of course, this isn't her first attempt. Her early work, as well as some of her best, has been influenced by the horror genre. She has exactly 10 horror films in her filmography, and each of them deserves at least some credit for defining her range and exposing the darkness that necessitated that rebirth in the first place. Number 1. Altered States, 1980. She's only in it for a few minutes, but it's significant because it's her first acting role, at the age of 5, and it's a body horror film with a science fiction twist. Margaret Jessup is the young daughter of Dr. Eddie Jessup, a character who also represents William Hurt's acting debut, The Avengers, Infinity War, Captain America: Civil War. The picture itself is a doozy, delving into the death of God and the genesis of humankind while having some of the niftiest experimental cinema and tape effects that could be managed in 1980, taken on Paddy Chayefsky's first novel. Number 2. Firestarter, 1984. E.T. the Extraterrestrial earned her a household name in 1982, but it was the adaptation of Stephen King's 1980 novel Firestarter that revealed the serious actress under all the charming youthful charm. The seriousness of her portrayal in the film is excellent for the character. I can't imagine anyone else being able to pull off the grim, resolute stance required of Charlie McGee. Her ability to put on such a show when her life was still in chaos is also a credit to her talent. She is 9 in Firestarter, and she was given her first drink at that age a year later. She was introduced to cocaine by someone in the 1980s LA party scene, and she was a regular at Studio 54 throughout it all. Despite her unconventional lifestyle, she puts on a show that even fully matured actors would admire. Number 3. Cat's Eye, 1985. Another Stephen King adaptation, this time a collection of 2 of the horror master's short stories, Quitters, Inc. and The Ledge, as well as one written particularly for the film. Barrymore's appearances in the film are mostly limited to cameos: a mannequin, a broadcast ad, James Woods' briefly encountered daughter, until the 3rd installment, when she plays a young girl who is the target of a fight between a stray cat and a goblin. It's among the top half of King adaptations, and Barrymore received an award nomination for her performance at the 1986 Young Artist Awards. It's well deserved. Even at the tender age of 10, she manages to deliver a convincing portrayal of a young child, and even though she lacks the self-assured gravitas that she brought to Firestarter, she imbues her characters with life and vibrancy. It's even more astounding when you realize she was only a child whose life was already falling out of control. Number 4. Far From Home, 1989. Barrymore had lived longer than most people, 3 times her age by the time she made Far From Home. Barrymore's role, 14-year-old would-be writer Jolene Cox, is fascinating since she was working on a book at the time, which would later be published as Little Girl Lost, an account of her difficult drug-addled life. The film itself is fine, a scary little thriller about a father and daughter duo from Los Angeles who become stranded without gas in a dark and dreary Nevada trailer park. They come just as a local serial killer cranks up his actions, as is only natural. The narrative is predictable but the atmosphere is excellent, and Barrymore's daughter has excellent chemistry with her father, Matt Frewer, Max Headroom, Orphan Black. The only issue is that the film emphasizes Barrymore's character's sexuality, which is problematic given that both the character and the actress were 14 at the time. Still, it's an underappreciated thriller that demands a second look, and it foreshadows where Barrymore's career would go in the remaining years of her adolescence. Number 5. Poison Ivy, 1992. It's hard to believe, but between 1989 and 1991, Drew Barrymore was considered persona non grata in Hollywood. Her reputation preceded her and work opportunities were few. When she did land a role, it sank beneath the waves without a trace, much like Far From Home. However, a role in an edgy new adolescent thriller put her back on the radar of bigger producers, as well as giving her the opportunity to remake herself as a completely bad girl prepared to manipulate everyone to go ahead. Given her current standing as the unquestioned queen of the rom-com, it's actually very amusing to recall this period. Number 6. Waxwork E, Lost in Time, 1992. Even though it's merely a cameo, it's worth mentioning because the film is extremely good. At the very least, it's a scary flick. Waxwork, released in 1988, was a far more traditional horror picture, serving as a sort of 80s forerunner to House of Wax. This one takes off where the first one left off, with a disembodied zombie hand escaping a burning wax museum, and chasing down the original film's characters. The protagonists must go through the manifested realities of numerous literary classics, Alien and Dawn of the Dead, after the hand frames one of them for murder. Number 7. Gun Crazy, 1992. Drew's entire 1992 was a marathon of horrors and thrillers. Gun Crazy, the year's final film, is an indie thriller with a story that resembles what natural-born killers would spray all over the silver screen 2 years later. Basically, it's like that old TV guide joke about the Wizard of Oz. After killing someone, a little girl joins forces with another to kill someone else. Drew Barrymore's Anita kills her sexually abusive stepfather, and partners up with a convict she meets through mail, just like in Natural-Born Killers. More murders occur once she summons the guts to reveal him her dead stepfather's remains. Barrymore dismissed her acting abilities in a recent interview with the New York Times, saying, "I'm not a terrific actress. But I have the power to transform into different personalities and characters." Whether the first half was correct or not, reviewers recognized the authenticity of the second claim, which can be seen in her portrayal of Anita here. The character, like Poison Ivy, is played with finesse, eliciting emotional desperation from the on-screen shock. Number 8. Doppelganger, 1993. Doppelganger is Drew Barrymore vs. Drew Barrymore. As lovely charming Drew fights off against her wicked twin, furthering her career as a conflicted potential femme fatale. Is that the case? Something is plainly wrong here, and I believe it extends to the story, but the key takeaway is that this is the film in which Drew Barrymore knees Danny Trejo in the groin. It's a cinematic moment worth remembering. The rest of the picture is a delightfully overacted, confused, and wonderfully bizarre 80s holdover attempting to compete with the grunge period. Also, what the hell is that ending? Number 9. Scream, 1996. Sure, there's another appearance, but that cameo is the sole reason Wes Craven agreed to join Scream in the first place. The horror master had been asked multiple times whether he wanted to helm the film, but he had always declined due to his commitment to The Haunting. He found Drew Barrymore was linked to the Scream movie, after his arrangement with The Haunting fell through. Finally, he agreed to participate. Number 10. Donnie Darko, 2001. Drew Barrymore did The Wedding Singer shortly after Scream, and thus the edgy Scream queen Drew was supplanted with Drew Barrymore, rom-com A-lister and, I guess, action movie comedienne. The only exception was an odd little indie about the late 1980s death and bizarre apocalyptic visions. It was a box office bomb, but a cult classic. The low performance was likely due to the fact that it was an aircraft crash picture released only a month after 9/11. Drew plays an English teacher who assigns Graham Greene's The Destructors to his class, setting the tone for the film's struggle between creation and destruction. She also claims that cellar door is the most beautiful phrase in the English language, and she might be right. Which of these Drew Barrymore flicks is your fave? What do you think about this video? Do let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.